Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Economic Times live webinar on the topic, the D2C playbook to scale your brand. The session is powered by Vinculum and AISPL. I am Dimple Bajwa from ET Edge, welcoming you all to this session. Now, going digital has currently become a necessity. The growth of the direct to consumer model has flourished in India. There is an enormous rise in the adoption of this model as it eliminates the middleman entity, giving the brand a complete control. As the brands entering the D2C space continue to increase, it has also led to the rise in e-commerce enablers to help them set up a personalized online store. The evolution of the D2C landscape with e-commerce has added to challenges and opportunities and, of course, trends. While switching to the pandemic-induced D2C model is profitable, it requires new tools and techniques to survive and thrive. Partnering with the right players can help elevate customer service opportunities and further reduce the cost. The crisis has gifted D2C brands an opportunity to connect with the consumers directly, but this opportunity is bound with effective order fulfillment. And as technology upgrades, brands need to evolve and innovate to develop a strong consumer relationship in the long run. Today's session will be rewiring your understanding of D2C for sustained growth and bulletproof your brand with the improvement opportunities to stay ahead of the competition. We have a power-packed panel to take you through this topic today. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming the speakers for today's webinar. We have with us today Himanshu Verma, Chief Product and Technology Officer, Licious, Yash Dayal, Chief Technology Officer, Zivami, Deep Ganatra, Chief Technology Officer, Good Clam Group, My Clam, Kumar Gaurav, Chief Technology Officer, WakeFit, Sumit Karanji, Country Sales Head, India, New Business, Vinculum, Navdeep Manaktala, Director and Head Startup Business Asia Pacific and Japan, AWS. And this session will be moderated by Amit Khanna, Partner Advisory, PwC, India. Without further ado, I would now invite Amit to take it from here. Over to you, Amit.
Thank you, Dimple, and welcome everyone. I hope in the next 1 hour we can give you some ideas about how can you help, how can a D2C model be helping your brand to scale up to the new heights. As Dimple said very clearly, it's more a necessity now. Everybody is trying to reach customer directly. Some of them very knowingly with a very clear strategy. Some actually because everybody is doing it and they don't want, or they have a fear of missing out, so they're still doing it without figuring out whether this channel is helpful or not. I have a group of friends with here today who have been working with D2C, both from a business and the product angle, as well as from the technology angle, which to make it actually work. What I will try over the next about an hour or so to get you some insights on what they feel about how D2C is working, how can D2C help scaling a brand, and then more importantly, what are the challenges which D2C as a channel feel, and what are the precautions we need to take care if we really want to make money out of this channel. So that's the whole piece. Let me just quickly get into some of the questions and let the speaker talk more about it, and then we can quiz them as much as we can so that we can suck as much of knowledge as we can from them. That's the whole idea for the next 60 minutes. One suggestion to all the audience, if you have any specific questions which you want me to ask, I will suggest you put it on the Q&A block. I will see if I can adjust them within the time available, and I will try to answer some of those questions. So let the comments and the questions keep flowing. That will also help me to moderate and ask the right questions to the panel. With that, let me directly come to the first question, and maybe Himanshu, I come directly to you because Dimple took your name the first, so obviously you become the first person to ask the question. So what are the trends, Himanshu, you are seeing which is happening in the market, which had actually made most of the organization talk about D2C, direct to customer, reaching, managing, all of that coming into this place? So what are the trends which are happening in the market which has accelerated this whole piece?
Thanks, Amit, for that, and welcome everyone on this conference. So, in terms of trends that I am seeing or I am passionate about, in this spaces, one is I think from a brand standpoint, there is definitely a desire to own customers' data, right? Which allows the brands to build a deeper and direct relationship with their customers. Traditionally, the entire data from a customer standpoint has been very, very siloed. Brands had really almost a third hand view of what their customers need and want, and their data is also available to them in a very, very, I would say, delayed manner. D2C definitely allows them to get that conversation and that data into their own fold, and hence increase the stickiness of their customers and be able to serve their customers in a much better fashion, right? And of course, over the years technology has evolved to a level where that is available to everybody, which was available to only a few companies earlier, right? uh, Second part, I would say, let's say a decade back, building a direct to consumer brand and a business was very, very difficult because you have to really do the entire last mile around it, right? Not only from an infrastructure standpoint, from about logistics, build all of those things on their own, in my earlier life, I end up building a lot of those things on my own, let's say for Flipkart in my journey there, right? Today, if you want to do that, payment is available on tap. Few APIs, no code way to just integrate into your systems. Logistics is available on tap. APIs are available. You can directly consume them, and you can get anything from point A to point B without necessarily knowing how it is happening, right? So a lot of this infrastructure today is available, which is also making it much more easier for people to think of products which can go directly from a brand to a customers. Third part is, I think, customers are also very, very comfortable with engaging directly with brands, instead of buying products from the middleman, which has been the traditional way, right? And this is mostly, I would say, convenient and, much less risky, going to the market in a way, right? Other part which is kind of often overlooked, but if you deeply think about, the internet speeds in India have increased drastically. It is available everywhere. The processing power that people carry in their hands has increased drastically, right? Even 5, 6, 7 years back, it was always a challenge as to how many apps you can really keep. I do not even know how many apps I have in my on my phone right now, right? My phone is as powerful as my laptop is, from every standpoint. So there's no technical constraint for people to really engage with multiple apps and multiple systems at the same point, right? And of course, this has also given rise to products which are really digitally native, and uh, and I would say products that cannot really be sold via traditional channels, right? There are a number of products which are tailor made for the D2C environment today, which were not even conceivable or possible in the earlier model. And of course, I think the biggest trend in last 2 years has been COVID. I mean, COVID has catapulted the customer demand into a very, very different region, as well as for brands to really understand that there is a uh, lot of power in going directly to the customers when the traditional channels have not been able to keep pace with the changing environment due to COVID. I think these are some of the things that I am seeing which are giving rise to the shift to D2C, I would say.
Right, right, Himanshu. No, I think this is very useful, and the point which you made, that now the brand wants to own the customer directly, or at least the customer or consumers' data directly, is influencing it quite a lot. I think I was also quite intrigued with the fact, and may not have thought earlier, that yes, there is an internet speed which has also increased, really accessed. Uh, but let me just come back to you, Yash, and you also work in a similar space. Are there other things which you are saying? Because one is the digital side of the technology evolution which has happened and which has made this happen. But is that something which is happening on the physical world also? Because ultimately, I, as a consumer, want product in my hand. How will I get it? Is that infrastructure also improving? Or are you seeing some trends which is accelerating it? Yash, I think you are speaking on mute.
Sorry. Can everyone hear me now? Yeah. Yeah.
We can hear you.
Yeah. Perfect. So I think I would echo most of the points which Himanshu has mentioned. I think I think we are seeing a big trend and acceleration towards the D2C brands and in the D2C space. And I think even if you look at it, like ideally, I think in an ideal world, every brand would actually want to directly reach out to the customer, and I think they were kind of limited with the technology available at that time and the resources and the investment which needed to be done in that point of time. I feel that many things have actually come together to make this happen. So one is, of course, the internet has evolved a lot, and as Himanshu mentioned, there's a lot of these services which are available on tap, which can be actually leveraged. Um, and I think one of the bigger factors which has actually accelerated the D2C growth in India is of course I think the pandemic that had. So I think for a long period of time, most of the malls and physical stores were closed, and then customers. And we know from data also that the kind of growth in the online space during COVID time has been much more than what it has been in the previous years. In fact, and similarly also in the industry, I think a lot of the traditional brick and mortar companies have actually evolved, and I've heard several stories of where almost a decade of tech roadmap was actually squeezed and executed in about a year to ensure that these, especially from the brick and mortar companies, that they're able to adopt and go through the whole digital transformation side of things.
Right. So just thank you. And I think you brought up another point, which is even make it further more interesting is, so it's not only about launching the new brand and make it D2C only brand. And now most of the traditional brand is also thinking how will they ride on the D2C wagon as such, because if that's the growth, then why it will be. But is it really possible? Because I know most of the traditional brands are now thinking of launching their D2C channel, which is a separate channel, or additional businesses which are D2C per se. I don't know how easily it's possible or not. Maybe I come to you, Deep. Any thoughts on how something which has been traditionally done in a very physical manner becoming physical or an omni-channel or actually directly a D2C per se. So what your views are there on that? So maybe Deep, you want to just throw some light on that because you work in that kind of a category.
Yeah. So for us, this whole omni-channel experience is extremely important. And when we say the traditional brands getting into the digital space, obviously when digital brands are trying to get into the offline space and create omni-channels, obviously they also have to get into the other space, right? So when it comes to being difficult or easy, obviously, I mean, you have to build a technology on the top of it to get into some level. But eventually, the goal of every brand has to build some kind of omni-channel experience where they could sell everything online and offline as well, and both the purchases, both the journeys of the users are connected. And I guess that's where the companies which are mostly offline or legacy companies, as we say, they are trying to get into the digital space because they have created a base in offline. Now they need to do something online. So yeah, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of interact in beauty space also. I can see many other companies who are just selling offline are trying to get themselves online. So yeah, that's one of the things which is happening a lot these days, which is good in fact for the ecosystem.
Perfect. Perfect. And again, and you brought up another new angle for us to figure out is that how will you match the two user journey which will happen from two different channels as such? So there's an offline journey and there's an online journey. But let me just clarify this, and I think many of our audience will like to also ask, is D2C is only e-commerce or is it digital? Is it you can also build a D2C brand in a physical mode? Is there any kind of balance there, Deep? What do you think?
So my definition of whole D2C brand is what is direct to customer, right? Doesn't matter where you sell it. So these days we all say that online is D2C, but in the end, if you go to the core of it, it's like the brand which is directly dealing with the customer, with the brand, right? So for me, obviously it can be any platform, but for me, that whole omni-channel experience is what going to play a huge role, because there was a time where we used to think that, oh, e-commerce is in, then offline retailers will stop working, no one will go there, but that never happened. So the whole goal is offline and online are going to work together, then only it will succeed. So that's what my personal view is. Yeah.
Perfect. We have also Gaurav here, and Gaurav, you've been dealing with your physical products and coming into digital mode and selling it through a digital channel. What's your experience have been, and how you have seen that, that again, going back the term which Deep had given, the legacy companies can actually shift to something which is D2C, irrespective of whether it's online or offline. Or any thoughts from you?
Hey, first of all, sorry for joining a bit late. Actually, I was struggling with my laptop. I have some other ways on my machine, so sorry about that. Uh, uh, Talking about how the legacy company can move to a D2C model, if you see like the recent trends, like large companies like Tata Consumers are also getting into D2C coffee brands. HUL is talking about going D2C. So there are two types of companies, right? So one is the large segment where companies like Tata, Reliance, HUL, they're actually trying to get into the D2C with either by launching new brand under a premium category and start with the D2C, or by acquisition. You see Imami investing in a few of the D2C startups recently. So there are two types of companies. One is the large category, other one is mid-size. Mid-size companies, if you see in our category, especially in mattresses, where you see companies like
Hello, Gaurav, we are losing you. Gaurav, we are losing you. Okay, so I think there seems to be some channeling at Gaurav's end. Gaurav, we lost you. I can hear you now.
I have, actually, I'm logged in through mobile, so there is some connectivity issue as well. So yeah, that's how all these companies will get into D2C gradually. Some of the large companies like Reliance, HUL, Tata, they have already initiated. Some of the mid-sized companies in our categories like Sleepwell and Duroflex, they have already got into that segment because there is no choice, right? Ultimately, D2C is the way to go. D2C is a channel where you have direct access to consumer data, which was not possible in the traditional model where you walk into an offline store. There is no communication with the customer. You are not collecting any of the information. So more or less, it's a black box when you look into the traditional model. So with elimination of all the middle layer, as we collect more and more consumer data, it is an obvious choice for large and the mid-sized company to get into the D2C model, and that's what will happen over the next few years.
Perfect. So basically, Gaurav, I think you summed it very well that D2C is the way to go. Everybody will perhaps going to go there. Maybe I just shift a little bit of focus and come to you, Sumit. Are we technically ready to actually go? Means you're saying that everything what we do today, all my traditional company will go to D2C. Do we have tools, technology as such, which can support it? Are we developing tools and technology in the same way? The acceleration is similar in that stem. What's your thought being provider of technology in the D2C world?
Sure. Thanks, Amit, for that question. See, opportunities like D2C, if I may say, they are like buses, right? They come and go. It's up to the brands out there to catch the bus or, just see if they really want to onboard now or later. But I'd like to just go back a bit before talking about technology. It's more about the customers. If you really see in the last 18 months, customers have started experimenting with what they are going to shop as well as from where are they going to shop. Earlier it used to be very straightforward. They had to buy a particular product which was in their mind, and they have in their families it has been bought over decades, and they knew where to go and buy. Now it has shifted, right? The places from where customers shop has shifted because there were no options earlier. Earlier it was just to walk into a neighborhood store or a mall or a brand store now customers want to explore more options, and this has given birth of new brands. And having worked very closely with very early stage brands going D2C, as well as with Fortune 500 companies who have gone D2C, I can safely say that technology itself, it is not intrinsically disruptive. It is how you understand the business models, your customer segment, where a brand is giving a particular product or a service, and then deploying it in the right way is where technology can be really helpful. Else what happens is, in the pursuit of going D2C very very quickly, just out of FOMO, typically companies do end up employing 5 to 6 type of softwares serving different purposes. So it is very also important to see how a company wants to disrupt itself in the D2C space. An organization really cannot disrupt itself. If you have to, for example, for legacy companies, they have to have a separate business unit, or a team of people who are completely different and having a mindset of D2C. The resources has to be separate, the profit formulas, and then the evaluation of technology also has to be separate. And that's where the right evaluation can come. If you think that from a common pool of resources which has been serving the legacy brands, the same resources and the same mindset is going to give you that headway into the D2C space, it is very very difficult. Opportunity is huge. At Vinculum, with our customers serving more than 800 plus brands, we have seen almost 170% growth in the number of orders processed post the pandemic, right? It's a beautiful challenge, but also you have to see from a brand perspective. One is what products your customers want. Second is, because now everyone wants everything instantly, right from instant coffee, instant breaking news, instant messaging. With the pandemic and instant deliveries, it is now more of a hygiene rather than a necessity. So how do you blend the customer requirements specific to your products? So there are technology and tools available, but from a brand's perspective, very very important to see what technology do you have. You cannot talk to 5 or 6 vendors and then cook up a solution. You need to have a provider which could give you a solution with the ecosystem of partners, and understand your business use case and provide you the right technology. And I'll speak more about it during the sessions, but these are my thoughts to start with.
No, thank you, Sumit. And this is very interesting, and I will definitely come back to you with that question very soon, because the technology itself is enabler. Ultimately, as you rightly put in, the business model has to be right per se. Uh, I actually want to go to our friends from AWS, and Navdeep, may I come to you? Everybody so far had spoken about one of the biggest reason why D2C is accelerating is the customer data and everything getting tracked. Now, you actually work in the cloud space. You actually build solutions on how to look at this data, how to store that data, how to figure out insight from the data and use that data. How you are seeing the whole evolution happening in that space, per se, are more solution coming in that place? Are more developer trying to work on that? What your thoughts are on that?
No, absolutely, Amit. I'll come to that. I think, first of all, lots of good points by all the panelists here, some very interesting points. But before I come to the specific question that you've asked me, if I put my consumer hat on, I would say one of the biggest reasons powering D2C is the choice and the convenience it offers consumers, right? Like, if you look at my buying behavior, I would not go to a retail outlet, which is like 20, 30 kilometers away. I stay in Gurgaon to Delhi. I probably go there once, not multiple times. I don't have access to retailers beyond NCR, and it opens up a huge opportunity in the choice and convenience. So I think that's a very, very big driver from the consumer point of view. Coming to the specific question that you asked me, Amit, I think that if you look at it, I would say technology is one of the biggest catalyst for the trends, or for the one of the biggest drivers for D2C, and specifically cloud computing. So how we define cloud computing is the on-demand delivery of IT resources via the internet with pay-as-you-go pricing. So that essentially means that instead of you having, or anybody, any organization or any developer having to buy infrastructure, maintain it and operate it, whether it's infrastructure, data centers, you can get it as you need it, right? And you can pay for essentially what you use. So whether it is simple compute, databases, storage, analytics, machine learning, you don't have to make a massive amount of investment towards it. You don't have to wait for that infrastructure to be delivered. You don't have to worry about that. If once you have your peak events, will you scale to that to cater to that load? Everything is available to you as you need it. It's like a light in your house. When you flip the switch, the power company sends you the electricity, and when you turn it off, it's off, and you only pay for what you consume. Same thing for cloud computing. When you need the resources, whatever the resources are, you access them via the internet, and you only pay for what you need. And it's not only powering your access to consumers within your vicinity, but across the globe. I mean, with the cloud, you can essentially power your stores and get to consumers across the globe within a matter of minutes. And I think that itself, whether it's an organization or whether it's a developer, it's so empowering for both to get to consumers.
Right. And I think you have a very important point saying that one of the things which D2C does is takes away the boundaries or the physical boundaries away. And you can buy from a store which is far off, multiple countries, multiple locations. If sitting in Mumbai, I want to buy a Haldiram chaat from Delhi, I can actually buy literally because I have access to those kind of things which makes it happen. All of you talked about what is helping to accelerate this thing. I'm assuming that whenever the acceleration happens and at the pace at which it's happening, means we heard from Sumit that it's gone 70% in the last year or so. It's a fairly large increase which is happening in the order processing and all. I'm sure it will be coming with a lot of challenges also per se. And maybe let's ask some of you, what are the different challenges we are facing per se on that aspect, both from the order side, customer side, technology side, and even delivery side. Maybe I start with you, Yash. Again, you move to D2C, you gain larger customer audience. But what are the challenges you are facing, or how difficult or it is to do the supply chain, order fulfillment, managing inventory? Because you don't know. Suddenly somebody in a different city, or let's say Cochin, will wake up and say, okay, I want to order to Yash. And Yash should have an inventory to service him. Otherwise, you will have a customer who's not happy. So what are those challenges which you think a typical D2C business brings with it?
Sure. Yeah. Before I answer that, I also wanted to touch upon a little bit on the omni-channel part, which was discussed early in the session. I think first of all, what I wanted to talk about is that it's not so when you talk about D2C, it's not just the online commerce. It's actually the omni-channel, which will actually give the right experience to a consumer. And I feel I think some of the earlier speakers had alluded to it. But I feel that omni-channel is like the perfect blend of physical as well as digital commerce, and it kind of provides the products to the consumer at whichever medium they're the most comfortable in, right? So coming to your question, I think as technology is improving, I think there's also lots of improvement that is happening in AI and machine learning, right? So and so as you're scaling on, as you're building your D2C brand, so first of all, what reaching out to the customers directly also allows you to collect and gather a lot more direct data from consumers, and you can actually use this data, and you can use this to power your AI and machine learning algorithms to actually build very strong prediction models on what are some of the things which the consumers are expecting. You have data about what are the products that are working, what are the products which are not working, um, and maybe you can also break up your audience into various consumer segments to understand that these are the products which work for this particular segment. These segments can also be based on geographical regions, right? For instance, maybe like a demographic of customers in North India may be shopping very differently to a demographic of customers in the southern part of India. There are some products which will vary between these two demographics. I think D2C enables you to reach out and speak to the customers in a much more direct manner. And even when you're trying to scale and build on your advertising, I think having it, for example, if you're comparing to a very traditional brand, for them and assume that is a traditional brand which is only on physical stores, for them to reach out to consumers, is one. Of course, they'll reach out to people who walked into the store, but that's a very small, that's a limited audience at a limited amount of time. And then for mass appeal, they'll probably do newspaper ads or they would do TV ads. But now with digital marketing, etc., coming in, all D2C brands can actually do very targeted advertising to segments of consumers, and also collect real world data to understand what's working, what's not working. And this all powers is actually helps to power this thing. So again, to answer your question, what if one consumer wakes up and says, I want this particular product? Most probably we've kind of already had signals about that, and we would, and if our models are correct, we would actually be ready, and we would already be serving that, of course, through the digital channel, but also maybe to the stores near to them. In fact, in the Summit, there's one very interesting thing that we do. Whenever we're opening a new physical store, we actually look at what have been the online orders in that region. And that kind of gives us a sense of these are the kind of products that are going to be sold in that area. And we actually ship those kind of products to that store as the first one. And then later on, once the store starts, we get more data from the stores, and we can tweak that. But I think the first model of what are the products which have to be are actually built using the online sales that have happened in that region.
Right. No, this is very interesting, Yash, and you've been given a very clear example of how this can actually be used to manage your inventory and fulfillment better rather than actually getting challenged. But unfortunately, all the products are not like yours. So if I come to you, Himanshu, you run a perishable product business. The product should reach customer in a specified period of time or amount of time. And if there's a mismatch in your inventory or order fulfillment, either you will deliver not such a good product, or you will have a unhappy customer, which I'm sure you don't want. And so far you've been able to manage it very, very well. So what are the challenges and what are the typical things which you think comes in your supply chain or order fulfillment scaling up way?
Absolutely. I think, building on what Yash was saying, I think for every brand, which includes us as well, understanding the customer behavior, understanding their demand patterns, being able to predict what they are going to order when becomes very, very important. And especially for a category like ourselves, we need to do this like every day and number of times, right? Because it's a very, very perishable product with 24 to 48 hour, shelf life. I cannot really plan for 3-4 days. I cannot inventorize it and run an event to, get rid of that inventory, unlike, a lot of other physical products, right? So we have to really do demand planning, supply planning, orchestration of that demand to supply, manufacturing of those products, sell them to the customers and get rid of the excess inventory all in 48 hours time, right? And that is where I think technology plays a very, very, very important role. We need to deeply understand the demand for our products almost at a household level. A cohort level strategy will not even work, because I need to know with a certain degree of surety that, hey, Amit is going to order my product on this day in the week. Otherwise, if I don't get it right, I will have both of those things. Either I will have stockouts, or I will have excess inventory, which I have no way to actually liquidate in any meaningful way. I have to just throw it away, right? So definitely, technology becomes very, very important, role, or has a very important role to play there, right? Having said that, I think taking a slightly macro, view around that part, I think challenges in the entire supply chain, especially when you're dealing with certain scale and if the scale happens in quick time, which is something that has happened with us in last couple of years' time, how do we really build a reliable and predictable supply chain on infrastructure that is unreliable and unpredictable, you know, uh, is a constant challenge, right? All the infrastructure and everything, at least on the physical side that we need, is neither reliable nor not unreliable, right? Or predictable. Right? If I say that in a city like Bangalore, if I will be able to reach from point A to point B in T amount of time, the variance on that T is going to be, 100%. And you can't really run a reliable supply chain with that kind of variance in mind, right? So we have to think very, very differently, which takes me to the other point that, hey, most of the solutions that are there in this space, which are globally working, none of them really work in India. For example, if you take, let's say, a transport management system, globally transport management system's core job is to optimize transportation, right? in India, since the data on the transportation is so unreliable, you can't really build an algorithm or a model which can optimize it. So you have to really build a very different system, which is nothing but exception management, right? So the transport management system that you will end up building in India will be mostly an exception management system which can really respond to exceptions happening on the ground in a very, very fast way rather than optimizing on your route, right? Because your route is not in a manner optimizable, right? So a lot of global solutions, I have found experientially and sometimes with a lot of time and money investment, they don't necessarily work. So you have to essentially innovate out of your way to solve some of those problems, right? And third point, which is important to also understand, I mean, customers' expectations go up very, very fast. I mean, 5, 6 years back, next day delivery in India was a delight or a customer delight. It's a basic expectation today. We are seeing almost a war in, at least in some sectors of the industry, where people are talking about 17-minute or 18-minute deliveries, right? you know uh, so customers expectations increase really, really, really high. So any product or service which is not constantly upgrading itself will find its way down in the pecking order. So all, I mean, as a company, everyone has to be really constantly on the edge that, hey, how do I really improve my services and products continuously? And that requires a very different kind of engine to be built internally, which is constantly seeking the feedback from the customers and evolving the services accordingly, right? So
Right.
those, I think, are few of the challenges that we face, and I believe most of the brands in this space face.
I think that's very interesting, Imanshu, and I really want to go how the customer feel and how we manage the customer experience there. But before I go there, because we are talking about supply chain and order fulfillment, actually, let me come to you, Sumit, and you basically see how the orders are coming in, how the fulfillment of orders are happening, uh, and as you said, it's growing almost 100% year on year, or maybe every 6 months. With that kind of a growth, what kind of challenges you see coming in? Because ultimately, the expectation of customer, as Imanshu said, is changing. I need my order fulfilled in a particular way, in a particular time. I need X level of service. I'm becoming more discerning customer. So, Sumit, what's your thoughts on those challenges and how you think the technology can handle that?
Sure. So Amit, we have worked with brands where we have solved certain challenges. So let me talk about the demand side. As I mentioned earlier, that customers have more options now from the places where they shop, which means that they could shop directly from the website or from the marketplace or from the stores, even from a WhatsApp or a Google page or an Instagram, anywhere they can be, right? So the first thing is, if you want to go direct to customers, you have to be available there. Now, just being available does not solve the purpose, which also means that on the backend side, you do not have an unlimited inventory, right? No one has unlimited inventory. So what essentially needs to be done is, how do you utilize the stocks and the inventories that are kept in certain locations, and how do you publish a common inventory across all sales channels? Because once you do that, you're able to leverage all of your inventory across all sales channels, and as and when the orders are coming, the real-time inventory syncing can solve that challenge in a huge way, because the orders can really come from anywhere, and e-commerce is a 24 hours ki dukaan. Anytime the orders can come. So so this is from the demand side, and the supply side. If you want to have a bridge, a common pool of inventory needs to be published, which will help you to utilize the stocks which are lying for certain days or hours, and you can probably route those orders first to those locations where the stocks are high in availability. Second is, in terms of data, we all have been speaking about data. Now, what do you do for data? It really means nothing if you cannot do anything about it, which means that there would be challenges because your sales channels are different, right? Your attributes, images, the entire mapping of the data across sales channels is very different. Now, from a management point of view, in order to make sense of the data, you need to make sure that you have to have a right technology which could ensure that your entire data is there in a single repository, and it is mapped against an industry glossary. So product information also becomes a very, very important part to think about, when a brand wants to go D2C. Apart from that, in terms of reconciliation, right? At the end of the day, it's all about money, right? The sales have happened, you have fulfilled the orders. Once the payments are coming, you need to also have a reconciliation mechanism, whether you have got the right payment or not, because there are multiple barriers and multiple transactional systems in between, right? So there could be a payment gateway, there is a logistic partners with which you have a rate card. Is everything happening perfectly, or are we just under the assumption that yes, it might be going on smoothly? So reconciliation again becomes a huge problem. If you ask the CFOs or the finance guys, you would have all hands up that how do you reconcile multiple sales channels in the payments coming in, where again technology can help, and we have already helped a lot of brands to solve that. So again, you need to have the 360-degree outlook of who is the right technology partner for you, and you need to understand that these problems do exist. If you go D2C, it's just not so easy. And last but not the least, I have seen many legacy brands, their traditional framework of the IT is not e-commerce driven, or it's not digital driven. You also need to see what is your IT policy, how is your framework of the IT, is it agile enough to accommodate such kind of changes, because you might end up getting 100 orders in a single day or in an hour. You have to have that agility, which also means that your all systems, whether you have a store or you have a warehouse, you might have various systems, do they talk with each other correctly? And at the end of the day, if you're using a central ERP, does all of those information flow it into the right manner? These are some of the challenges that needs to be solved, and then you can scale as fast as you want.
Perfect. I think this is very interesting, Sumit. So we spoke about the order and the fulfillment and the supply chain side. I also want to focus a little bit on the customer side, and I want to come to you, Deep, per se, because you have multiple categories which you are looking at and seeing mobilize. How easy to give a customer in a D2C business a very good experience, how to keep him loyal, because it's not only you, your competitor also has a D2C channel and he is also accessing the same customer. And as somebody said, the fight is whether I deliver it in 18 minutes or a 17 minutes, somebody will come with 16 minutes. So I'm actually somehow breaking some of the barriers which are there, and customer will become listening. So any thoughts, Deep, which you have because of multiple category, you might have seen how to get the new customers in, how easy it is, how to retain them, how to keep them happy, per se.
Yeah, so see, basically everything boils down to the customer experience, which includes two parts. One is the technology, the other part is non-technology, right? So first is like how well you can personalize users' journey throughout your platform, so customer gets what he or she wants, right? That is extremely important, right? Because if you are not giving him or her what they want, that doesn't make sense. So get all the information, give all the information what they need. So for example, let's say when it comes to lipstick, right? So we added something called as virtual try on, right? Which they could try lipstick offline. Now they just try the same thing online, shades on the camera, switch it. So they can pick the shades very easily, right? Now that journey will help them to enhance the customer buying experience, but that's not where it ends. That the other journey starts after that, where how easy you make it for them to make purchase, and then how easy the delivery is, right? So the quicker delivery where the post purchase cycle starts, where you have to optimize your delivery and warehousing such a way that they get the orders, they get the products as quick as possible in hand. And after that, another experience starts where, let's say they bought a lipstick, or they bought some color cosmetic makeup, face makeup, right? You help them how to use that, you be in touch with them, which revolves around the product they use, or the products which are related to that. And then maybe based on different customers behavior, you segment that customer in different areas, and then you keep targeting them in separate way. So some people may come when it comes to when you have higher discount. Some are loyalist when they come for the high end product. Some people come where their products are about to replenish. So you have to basically, as a D2C business, you have to start understanding your customers, understand their behavioral patterns, and then you have to talk to them accordingly. But if you talk randomly, then obviously you are going to lose the customer, and it's very difficult to get those customers back.
Right. Very interesting. So Navdeep, if I may come to you, and I have two specific questions which I wanted to ask you.
Sure.
One, you guys actually run a technology or a technical solution marketplace on your cloud, because all of these solutions, whether we talk about supply chain or whether we talk about the customer piece or fulfillment, people actually build on the cloud solutions as such. So they will be sitting in some of your cloud per se. Even all the models. Why don't you give us some bit of ideas about what are the latest and the best of the use cases which are happening in this space, and what you think are the one. And the second question, which I actually was very intrigued to ask after you spoke, the first question saying that, yes, the cloud can make an Indian brand to go global and people can buy from anywhere. What's your thoughts? Is actually a D2C an opportunity for an Indian brand to go global? What your thoughts are? So maybe two points on that also will be very helpful.
No, sure, Amit. So the first one is there are 2-3 things you can do, right? One is that we have a whole set of out-of-the-box solutions, which is essentially plug and play. So you kind of power them up and you're ready to go. So for example, let me give you the example. Let's take machine learning. I think some of the other panelists talked about machine learning. We have solutions out of the box for personalization and recommendation. So I, as a user, for example, open your website or your app. The experience that I get is customized basis the interest I've specified, basis the searches I've done, basis the purchases I've made, for example. So we have out-of-the-box solutions for this because many of the smaller brands do not have enough data to build their own models or do not have the expertise in-house to build their own models. In the case of the larger brands, like the brands that we have here, all my colleagues that I have here, they have sophisticated teams. They can use our platforms and kind of build their own models and evolve them and iterate them over a period of time. And then we have partners like Vinculum who kind of build specific solutions to address the needs of various D2C brands and address specific needs there. And then what we do is that we don't only help them from a technology perspective, but we also help them from a marketing perspective, go-to-market perspective. So there's 3 options that you have there. In terms of use cases, I mean, in D2C, we are seeing a plethora of use cases, but let me just quickly rattle off a few interesting ones that I'm seeing. So machine learning, I talked about personalization and recommendation. The second one is fraud detection to prevent online fraud. We have tons of data available to us to crunch that to kind of lower potential fraud that happens. Forecasting is another one. We talked about it earlier in this session in terms of how do you kind of manage your inventory, how do you forecast better. So that's something we have an out-of-the-box solution there. Route optimization in the case of logistics is another one that we see a lot of uptake for. The other one is that obviously if you run a D2C platform or a business, you will obviously have a customer contact center. So we have a cloud contact center solution. Again, you can power up very quickly, offer an omni-channel experience so customers can engage with you via voice or an interactive chat experience. We have a content distribution network. So in case you have a lot of content, video, images on your website or your app, it optimizes the experience for the end user so that there is no lag, no delay. It's just a smooth, seamless, fast experience. We have text-to-speech solutions. We have translation solutions given the plethora of languages. And then another one that we are seeing finally is a lot of video being integrated, particularly into the discovery part of the journey. So we have multiple video solutions to cater to that, to address the needs of various D2C brands. So, I mean, I could go on, but this is just a sample set of the interesting use cases that I'm seeing. Now, in terms of brands going global, I'm not qualified enough to comment about that. I think that the panelists here and their companies here have very strong propositions. We are seeing a lot of people who are building off us D2C brands, looking at ASEAN as a market, looking at the Middle East as a market in first priority now versus going directly to the US and then expanding to the US. And all, like I said, in terms of technology, most of that problem in getting to different geographies is more or less solved. That is not a constraint anymore.
Right. So, but what you are saying is that technologically, yes, you can handle customer coming from anywhere in the world. depending on your product or your category, you need to make the reason specific strategy for your brand, for your category.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So I think I have one more doubt which I want this panel to actually help me clarify is, see, we always talk D2C as a business which is a complete B2C. In various cases in our kind of country, we have a B2, B2C kind of a channel where there will be a small customer who will buy and the consumer will ultimately buy from him. And because that's how this model has worked and the fragmentation which will there. Maybe I want to come to you, Gaurav, and talk about what's your view on that particular channel, that whether the same thing which we are doing in D2C, and because we are a vast country, can we follow the same rules of the game for a B2B, where the B is a smaller retailer, or a B2B2C kind of pieces? Any thoughts, Gaurav, you may have? Gaurav, are you there? Okay, so I don't know whether we have Gaurav on the call or not. I think he was having some difficulty. Gaurav, we can see on the call. Gaurav, are you speaking on mute? Okay. So I think there seems to be some problem at Gaurav's end, per se. But maybe I can open this to the panelists if anyone have any point of view which want to talk about it, maybe Deep or Himanshu or Sumit, and anyone as such who just want to give some point of view on that.
Yeah, I can take that. I think my opinion on that is, world will always remain, omni-channel, right? I don't think any brand or most of the brands will essentially, if they are offline, they will go online. If they're online, they will, attempt offline. Offline, I mean. So I don't think I think there is space for both these models to exist, right? And a large number of them may get powered by a B2B2C, kind of a model, especially to reach out to the tier 2, tier 3 India, right? Where there is still a fair bit of hesitation, in people, or a trust deficit in directly, buying online, right? People want to, have somebody sell it to them, and somebody to reach out to if they have an issue with that product. Uh, and that trust deficit still exists in large part of, India, I would say, right? So definitely, I do see that happening uh, all across. So all these channels will continue to exist. I think challenge will most of the brands will be to understand, hey, which are the channels that work best for them, and how do I really optimize my spend in those channels, right? And that way there is space for all of these channels to coexist in most of the brands, I would say.
Perfect. Great. Great,
Amit,
Himanshu.
Amit, I
Yeah.
would like to add a little bit there, right?
Yeah. Correct.
I think I just wanted to mention again on omni-channel. I think it's kind of an evolution. I think it's an evolution expectation which is happening from consumers, as Himanshu earlier mentioned, right? So earlier people were fine with a 2-day delivery. Now I know that for especially some of the companies are giving mobile phones within a few minutes. So I think that's going to become the expectation very soon. So similarly, I feel omni-channel is also an expectation which consumers will have, and I think most brands will need to go to omni-channel, because I think the consumers will expect that if I've bought something online and I have a question, can I just go into a store and just ask a question about that? Or if I've bought something from a store and I take it back home and I don't like that product, can I just put a return request from the app, and someone can just pick it up and I don't need to go back to the store again, right? And I think Zivame being one of the leading D2C brands in India, and I'm really glad to say that Zivame is on the forefront of omni-channel, and I think the whole premise was that we wanted to be where the consumer is most comfortable with, and we've already kind of cracked a few of the core use cases. For instance, if you walk into a Zivame store, if the product is not there, you can actually place an order from the store itself, and it'll actually get delivered to your home. And similarly, I think one feature which I find is very interesting is especially when you are a digital first company, digital companies do a lot of sales and they do a lot of short sales, and we are able to actually have universal pricing. So even when there's a sale happening for a few hours, when consumers are walking to to a physical store during those few hours, they actually get all the offers which are available. So.
That's very, very interesting. Specifically, I also being one of the consumer for most of the products which you guys all sell, I think that becomes very interesting to hear from the consumer, because now you see the new age consumer goes to the physical store and keep an phone open with the online prices and keep comparing and keep haggling. So that's a standard piece. Great. I think we are at the top of the hour, but before we conclude the session, I think I just wanted to ask each one of you, there are many people in the audience who are looking at scaling the D2C brands. So if you have to give one advice or one tip to each one of them in the next 10 seconds, what will be that from your perspective? It could be a quick fire round. Maybe Yash, we can start from you.
Sure. I think my advice is that this is the right time, and this is the right time to build, especially if you're an Indian brand. I think the time to build a strong D2C brand is now, because the ecosystem is ready, the consumers are ready, and this is the right time to take action on this.
Super. Great. If I come to you, Sumit.
So I would just say, if not now, then when? Just spot the trends of your customer database who has stopped buying from you, and you will see a signal which will enable you to act right now. And we are here to help. Thanks.
Perfect. If I come to Deep.
Yeah, the time is always right. There are many plug and play solutions available. You can just plug everything and get it. You really don't need to build to start it off. So get started and plug and play everything. That's all.
Right. So everybody's encouraging do it now. Navdeep, any thoughts from your side?
Yeah, all the technology that you need is available today. So experiment and innovate with it. Don't hold back.
Perfect. Great. Himanshu?
Yeah. I would say, for everybody who wants to get into this bandwagon, understand your product proposition and differentiation really well, and focus on serving the customer needs relentlessly, and invest in technology at the right time. As everybody said, yeah, technology is available. It's a matter of understanding what your customer needs and catering to that.
Right. And we were more technology people on the panel, so obviously technology came on the forefront. Gaurav, are you there? Any tip from your side? I saw you joining back. Are you there? I think we still can't hear Gaurav. But as we are at the top of the hour, I think it's a great talking to you and understanding what is happening in the D2C world and how you're seeing the technology is playing the role. I take back three very clear messages per se. Number one, the time to scale up your D2C business is today. So don't wait till tomorrow and do it now. It's not so difficult. There are technology tools and the stacks available. Use them to experiment, build your own unique strategy out of it and take it there. And the third piece, which is very important, it's ultimately still the customer is the king. So you need to make sure that everything else falls from the customer expectation and you give the better experience. And that perhaps will mean that you will still remain omni-channel rather than only one single channel company in the long run. I think that was my takeaway per se. I once again want to thank all the panelists for your views and your time per se. I bring the ET team back. Dimple, are you there?
Yes, Amit. Hi. Thank you, Amit, so much for taking us through such an enlightening and such a perspective session. And I would also like to thank each panelist, who took out the time today to join us and, talk on this topic. And it was a very, very insightful session with you all, sharing your inputs. Thank you once again. And we look forward to seeing you more often at such webinars. This is Dimple Bajwa signing off. Have a nice day, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.